What do you mean we're short-staffed again? Xander Steele's voice echoed in his office as he tossed the latest shift report on his desk. 7 locations. He'd bought the drive-thru chain 6 years ago from a retiring family who ran it old-school paper schedules, handshake deals. Since then, he'd expanded, cleaned up the books, and hired a district team. But the soul of the business, the people flipping burgers and handing out fries at midnight, that's where things were slipping. The reports kept coming in late-night shifts, constantly understaffed, high turnover at one specific location on the south side. The numbers didn't add up. That store made the most on weekends, but the labor hours were always below the others. Xander rubbed his temples. I'm not doing this blind anymore. He had never personally met most of the new staff. His face wasn't on any corporate poster. And with a shaved beard, dyed hair, and a pair of thick glasses, he didn't look like the man who signed their paychecks. He called in a trusted friend from HR to quietly put him on the schedule at Store 4 as a new overnight trainee. Zeke, mid-30s, down on his luck, looking for night work. The manager wouldn't know the difference. They were hiring fast, with no time for meet and greets. Saturday night rolled in. Xander parked 2 blocks from the location, slipped on a worn hoodie, and walked in through the back at 9:45 p.m. Inside, the air was thick with fryer grease and exhaustion. A girl no older than 20 stood at the register, her eyes puffy, hair pulled into a crooked ponytail. Next to her, a lanky guy with tattoos up his neck flipped patties like a machine. The manager, a man in his early 40s with a goatee and a Bluetooth earpiece, leaned against the counter, phone in hand. You the new guy? The manager asked without looking up. Yeah. Zeke. Cool. Don't slow us down. We're already too short. The girl shot Xander a quick glance and whispered, Welcome to hell. By 11:30 p.m., the drive-thru line stretched around the building. Xander was at the window, trying to keep up with orders. The headset kept cutting out, and the soda machine was half broken. Yo, Zeke! The girl her name tag read Zoe shouted from the other side. Customer wants no onions, and the guy on grill isn't listening. I heard her. The tattooed guy, Miles, replied, sweat dripping down his temple. I'm trying, alright? Xander saw it clearly. Miles was doing the work of 2 people, and Zoe hadn't sat down once. But the manager? He was now behind the counter, chuckling as he scrolled through his phone. Zoe approached him nervously. Mr. Clay, can I take my 10? My legs. Clay didn't even look up. 10? You want a break? Maybe if you stop whining and actually move like you care. Zoe blinked. I've been here since 5. Clay looked up, loud enough for the others to hear. You hear that, boys? Princess Zoe needs a nap. Maybe we should get her a blanket and a bedtime story. Miles looked away. Zoe's face turned red, but she went back to the register without a word. Xander clenched his jaw. He waited until the rush died down around 1 a.m. He caught Zoe restocking straws in the lobby, rubbing her knee. You all right? She gave a small shrug. Yeah. Just tired. It's like this every weekend. Always short like this. Yup. Clay says we don't need more people, but we're drowning. Last week, one guy quit mid-shift. Just walked out. Xander paused. Why do you stay? She looked up. Because I need the job. And Miles, he's got 2 kids. We can't afford to walk out. Xander nodded slowly. Thanks for being honest. He walked back to the kitchen. Clay was sitting on a crate in dry storage, laughing into his phone. Hey Clay, you got a sec? Clay sighed and stood. What now? Xander looked him in the eye. You always talk to your staff like that? Clay raised a brow. Excuse me? You mocked her. Right in front of everyone. Clay crossed his arms. Listen, Zeke, or whoever you are, you're new. You don't know how things work around here. These kids? They're soft. Always complaining. You gotta be tough or they walk all over you. Xander didn't reply. He just stared. Clay scoffed. What, you gonna run crying to corporate? Xander pulled off his glasses and took off his cap. No. I'm not going to corporate. Clay's face dropped. I own this place. Xander's voice was low. You've never met me because I've been too busy trusting people like you to run it the right way. Clay took a step back, jaw tightening. You've gotta be kidding me. You think mocking a kid who's been on her feet for 8 hours is tough leadership? You think ignoring a grill guy working 2 stations is smart? Clay was silent. You're done, Xander said. Get your stuff and leave. Now. Clay opened his mouth, but Xander cut him off. I said now. Clay stormed out, muttering curses under his breath. Xander turned around. Miles and Zoe were standing there, stunned. Zoe whispered. Wait. You own the place? Xander nodded. Yeah. And you too? You just showed me more work ethic in 4 hours than I've seen in some full-time managers. Miles blinked. What happens now? Xander looked around the kitchen, then back at them. Now we fix this. By the time the sun threatened the horizon, Xander had scrubbed ketchup off the walls, restocked the freezer, and handed out the last lukewarm breakfast sandwich to a construction crew in a dented van. The store was quiet now, just the low hum of the overhead lights and the clatter of Zoe wiping down the front counter. Miles leaned against the sink, arms crossed, apron streaked with grease, his eyes bouncing between Xander and the floor. He hadn't said much since Clay walked out. Neither had Zoe. Xander washed his hands at the prep station and reached for a clean towel. I know this is awkward, he said, drying off. But I need to ask you both something. Zoe looked over. Are we fired? No, Xander said quickly. You're the reason I came here in the first place. I just didn't realize how bad it had gotten. Miles let out a breath through his nose. It's been like this for months. He never scheduled enough people. Said corporate wanted labor cut. We figured he was just doing what he was told. I never told him to cut hours, Xander said. We stretch margins, yeah, but not at the cost of people falling apart on shift. Zoe folded the rag and set it aside. He used to cancel breaks if we didn't hit drive-thru times. Said if we wanted a 10-minute break, we had to do it on the clock and eat while restocking. Xander frowned. How often? Almost every weekend, Miles added. And he wouldn't let anyone pick up overtime. Said it made the numbers look bloated. Xander rubbed the bridge of his nose. No one reported this. Zoe hesitated. We didn't think anyone would listen. When Sarah called the hotline a few weeks back, Clay found out. She got her hours cut the next week. Xander's expression hardened. She still works here? No. Quit 2 days later. Said it wasn't worth crying in the walk-in cooler anymore. He nodded slowly. All right. Things are going to change. But I need you two to hang in just a little longer. Miles asked. What does that mean? It means I'll be back tonight. And I'm bringing a few people with me. Zoe tilted her head. Like corporate? Not quite. Just people I trust. Outside, the first rays of morning cracked across the parking lot. Xander grabbed his coat and wallet from the office and paused at the door. You did more than survive a shift tonight. You showed what this place could be if it wasn't weighed down by the wrong people. Either of them spoke. They just watched him go. By 6:30 that evening, the store was already under pressure. The dinner rush was starting, and the new evening shift had only 2 team members, an older woman named Carla, and a quiet young man named Devin with shaggy hair and a nervous twitch to his shoulder. Xander walked in through the back in plain clothes, no hoodie, just a black polo and jeans. He didn't need the disguise anymore. Carla noticed him first. You here to fire more people? She asked with a tired laugh. Not tonight. Just watching, he replied. She didn't ask anything else. She was too busy juggling front counter orders and trying to keep the fry station from backing up. Devin said nothing the entire first hour. He kept his eyes on the screens and moved like he was afraid of breaking something. Xander stood off to the side, quietly observing. He noticed Carla pausing every few minutes to explain things to Devin. She was patient, but she was clearly covering for two people. You always this short on dinner shift? He asked Carla when there was a lull. She didn't stop moving. Only on days with vowels. Xander smiled faintly. And Clay scheduled this? Yeah. Said dinner didn't need more than 2 unless it was Saturday. Even then, he'd show up late and stand around. Xander nodded. How long you been here? 18 months. Came in after my husband passed. Needed the insurance. He paused, then quietly asked, You okay with staying if things change? Carla finally stopped, looked him straight in the eye. You fix this place, I'll train every kid who walks through that door. But I'm too old to keep carrying it by myself. Xander gave a firm nod. That's fair. By 8, Zoe and Miles walked in for the overnight shift. Both looked surprised to see Xander still there. You trying to win Employee of the Month? Zoe asked. I'm here for backup. Right behind him, a tall woman in slacks stepped through the back door. She introduced herself as Renee, head of internal operations and someone who'd worked with Xander since his first restaurant acquisition. Starting tonight, we're auditing every shift log, every payroll discrepancy, and every labor report from the last 6 months, Renee said as she set up her laptop in the office. Xander gathered the team near the back prep table. Here's what's happening. Clay's gone. Effective immediately. I've already contacted legal to process the termination. He won't be allowed back on the premises. Zoe blinked. He's really out? Yes. And anyone who retaliated against staff, lied about labor metrics, or manipulated schedules will be reviewed. If I find more, they're out too. Miles glanced at Renee. What about the people who left? We're contacting each of them, she said. If they want to come back, we'll offer positions. If not, we'll still document everything they experienced. Xander pointed to the dry erase board at the back wall. Starting tonight, new rules. No skip breaks. No solo shifts. No off-the-clock prep. Anyone who feels unsafe, overwhelmed, or disrespected come to me or Renee directly. We're rebuilding this store from the inside out. Zoe leaned against the counter, arms folded. That's a lot of promises. What if it just goes back to the way it was? It won't, Xander said. Because I'm not leaving until it's fixed. They didn't cheer. They didn't applaud. But for the first time, the air felt different, like the weight had shifted just enough to breathe again. Later that night, while the drive-thru line crept along and the fries hissed in oil, Xander worked shoulder to shoulder with Devin at the sandwich station. You like working back here? He asked. Devin shrugged. It's all right. Just don't like talking much. Fair enough. You learning okay? Devin nodded. Carla's good at explaining. Xander watched him finish wrapping a bacon double and slide it down the chute. It wasn't perfect, but it was fast and clean. You ever think about being a lead? Devin looked up, startled. Me? Yeah. You've got solid hands. You stay calm when it gets loud. Devin hesitated. Clay told me I wasn't leadership material. Xander didn't flinch. Clay's gone. I'm not. Devin's hands tightened around the sandwich paper. Maybe. Think about it. I'll be around. Just after midnight, Carla stepped outside to take her break for the first time in 3 weeks. Miles slid into the headset, and Zoe picked up the register. The kitchen flowed smoother than it had all weekend. Renee sat in the office, reading through payroll logs. She turned to Xander. Found something. What? She clocked out Zoe 30 minutes early 3 weeks in a row. System shows she worked until close. Xander stared at the screen, jaw clenched. Document it. We'll make it right. Outside, a car pulled up to the window. Zoe handed over a soda and smiled faintly. Thanks for coming. Hope your night gets better. The customer gave a wave and drove off. Inside, Xander leaned against the prep table, watching the team move. No shouting. No phones out. No one drowning. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The work was just beginning. Tuesday evening, 2 days after Clay was removed, Xander stood in the dim back hallway of Store 4, arms crossed, watching the news shift lead a temp named Jonah fumble with the order monitor. Jonah had been transferred in from a sister location after Renee dug through personnel files and found him flagged as reliable under pressure. But standing here, shoulders hunched and eyes darting toward the dining area every few seconds, Jonah looked more like someone trying not to drown. "Jonah," Xander said quietly. "You all right?" "Yeah," he muttered, tapping the screen. "Just. The register's lagging. And I think the printer's jammed again." Xander didn't move. "You know how to fix it?" "No. Clay used to just unplug it." "Let's not do that," Xander said. "Show me what it's doing." Jonah stepped aside, and Xander gently navigated through the menu, careful not to make it seem like he was taking over. Jonah watched, then nodded slightly as Xander cleared the backlog and restarted the print queue. "You've done this before?" Jonah asked. "Enough times to know jamming paper doesn't fix itself." Jonah gave a short nod. "Thanks." Renee, still camped in the office combing through incident logs, glanced up through the glass but didn't say anything. They'd agreed no more hovering. The team needed room to breathe, not feel like they were under surveillance. Out on the floor, Zoe was training a new girl named Liana. 17, shy, and barely above a whisper when she spoke, Liana had been hired the day before after Xander held a walk-in interview blitz. He'd made the decision to personally approve every new hire for the next 30 days, no exceptions. "Grab a second tray when you fill drinks," Zoe told her gently. "Otherwise they tip over when the car pulls away." Liana nodded and reached for the extra tray. Her hands shook slightly. Zoe noticed. "You nervous?" she asked. "A little. I've never worked nights before." Zoe reached over and adjusted the drink lid on one of the sodas. "You're doing fine. Just take it one order at a time." Liana didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed a little. Miles, meanwhile, was elbow-deep in fryer oil. One of the baskets had seized halfway down, and he was trying to unjam it without burning himself. "Gloves!" Carla barked from behind him as she passed by with a case of buns. "You're not 20 anymore." "I'm 28. He grunted. "Exactly. Use gloves." Xander walked over, pulled a hook from the side wall, and handed it to him. "Here. Use this to lift the basket. You'll get better leverage." Miles took it without comment, gave a small nod, and dislodged the basket with a hiss of steam. "Thanks." Xander looked around. The line was steady, but not overwhelming. Orders were going out in under 3 minutes. The headset volume was finally adjusted properly. It wasn't smooth yet, but it was steady. Controlled. He stepped back into the office, where Renee had pulled up a screen labeled Employee Feedback Archive. "Someone left a comment about Clay last month," she said. "Anonymous. Says he told them they were too sensitive to work nights after they asked to swap shifts due to a medical issue." "Who was it?" Renee clicked through. "Employee ID matches a girl named Rima. She worked here for 2 weeks, then transferred out. Find out where she went." "I want to talk to her directly," Xander said. "Already did. She's at store 6. I've got her manager on standby." Xander nodded. "Good. And the exit interviews?" 6 of the last 8 mentioned Clay by name. All negative. One said he called her useless and slow because she didn't speak English well. Xander's jaw tightened. "You save that?" "Yes. I send it to legal. It's being added to the official termination record. Keep tracking it. If anyone else comes forward, I want it documented." Back in the kitchen, Jonah called out, "Can someone help with register 2? It froze again. Carla walked over this time. She moved slower than the others. Her knees weren't what they used to be, but her hands were steady as she reset the terminal. You've got to hold the button down, not just tap it, she told him. Jonah watched her. Thanks. I'm not used to systems this old. You get used to it, she said. Then added, if you stick around. Xander leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed again. How's he doing? He asked her quietly. Carla shrugged. He's trying. That's more than I can say for the last 3. Think he's right for lead? Too early. He's green. But he listens. That counts. Xander nodded. Let me know if that changes. At 9:15, a black sedan pulled into the lot and parked near the back. A woman in a navy blazer stepped out, carrying a clipboard. Renee straightened when she saw her through the window. That's Sheila. Labor Compliance. Xander walked out to meet her before she reached the door. Appreciate you coming, he said. We got your call, she replied. There's a backlog of complaints here. Some were flagged but never escalated. We're opening a formal review. I want full transparency, Xander said. Start with the scheduling logs and any clock-out overrides. Sheila nodded. We'll need at least 3 days. You've got them. And my full cooperation. Inside, the team kept working. Orders came in, burgers went out. A rhythm was forming. Just after 10, a group of teenagers came in, loud and rowdy. They dumped a handful of change on the counter, laughing. Zoe stepped up to the register. You can't buy 6 combos with $5, she said calmly. One of them sneered. We're regulars. Clay used to let us eat for free. Zoe didn't flinch. Clay's not here anymore. Another teen nudged the first. Just order fries. We'll eat off that. The first one leaned over the counter. You always this uptight? Xander stepped in, voice quiet but firm. She's doing her job. You're welcome to order if you've got the money, but we don't tolerate harassment here. The kids stared at him. Who are you? Owner. They backed off. One muttered something under his breath, but they left without incident. Miles walked past carrying a new batch of fries. Didn't think I'd see that day. Which part? You stepping in before it got ugly. Xander didn't answer. He didn't need to. At 11:30, Zoe stepped outside to catch some air. Liana followed a few minutes later, keeping close to the wall. You doing all right? Zoe asked. Liana nodded, then hesitated. I didn't think I'd keep up. You did fine, Zoe said. Better than fine. Liana looked out at the street. My last job, the manager yelled if I asked questions. Said I wasn't cut out for customer service. Zoe didn't respond right away. Then she said, You ever need help, just ask me. I don't care how many questions you've got. Liana gave a small nod and went back inside. Midnight came. The line slowed. Carla sat for a few minutes, sipping water and reviewing the closeout checklist with Jonah. Miles wiped down the grill. Orders were still rolling in, but the team wasn't scrambling anymore. Renee stood beside Xander in the office, arms folded. They're holding it together. He nodded slowly. Because we pulled the rod out. You want to come back again tomorrow? I want to come back until this place doesn't need me every night. Renee tapped the desk. Fair enough. At 1:30, a delivery truck pulled in for the overnight drop. Jonah walked out to meet the driver, clipboard in hand, asking questions about the inventory sheet. Carla watched through the window. Maybe he's got a shot, she muttered. At 2, Xander finally stepped outside. The night was cool. Quiet. A few cars still came through, but nothing like the chaos of Saturday. He leaned against the brick wall, watching the headlights drift past on the street beyond. Inside, the store kept moving. The difference wasn't just in the absence of one man. It was in the way the team looked at each other. The way they moved. No one was dragging themselves through anymore. They weren't fixed. Not yet. But they weren't drowning. By Thursday evening, the rhythm inside Store 4 had become steadier, but the tension hadn't fully lifted. The team worked with more confidence, but they were still watching. still cautious. A few nights of support didn't erase months of fatigue and silence. Xander knew that. He hadn't left early once since the first undercover shift. He didn't need to clock in to stay. He was the reason they'd been ignored in the first place, and no apology would mean much if he disappeared now. He arrived just after 7, still in jeans and the same plain black polo. No clipboard. No fanfare. He helped refill sauce bins, wiped down trays, and nodded a quiet hello to the team already on shift. Zoe was walking a new hire through headset protocol, a tall boy named Marcus who hadn't worked a register before but picked up tech fast. Jonah was on Fryer, more confident now, though he still checked behind him every few minutes to see if someone was watching. Liana worked a short shift up front before heading home for school the next day. Carla was off tonight, her first scheduled evening off in nearly 3 weeks. Miles was already in back, reviewing the prep count for the overnight stretch. He didn't speak when Xander walked in, just held up a clipboard with a red circle around the chicken patty stock and raised his eyebrows. "You said we were good on these," Miles said. "We were. They must have shorted the last delivery." Miles set the clipboard down. "That's the 3rd time this month." "I'll talk to the supplier tomorrow," Xander replied. "We'll add it to the delivery audit." Miles nodded once and went back to prepping. At 8, a woman in a company polo arrived from another location. Her name was Mariah, and she'd been asked to quietly observe for staffing integration. She hovered near the drive-thru, scribbling notes, but didn't interrupt the flow. "You're the owner, right?" she asked Xander after 20 minutes. He nodded. "I expected more chaos, to be honest. You missed last Saturday." She glanced around. "This crew's tight. They've got good instincts. But they're running thin. You're still too short for closing." "I know," he said. "We've been interviewing every day. I'm not rushing another bad fit." Mariah crossed her arms. "You ever think about pulling from the morning crew? Split hours? I'd rather not burn out a different shift to patch this one. If we stretch them too far, we're back where we started." She didn't argue. Fair enough. By 9:30, the drive-thru line started to stack. A local concert had just let out, and the cars came in waves. Zoe took orders while Marcus handled handoffs, his headset slipping slightly as he leaned out the window. "Tray," Zoe called, pointing to the second bag. Marcus rushed to grab one, almost knocking over a cup, but caught it just in time. He passed the order with a quiet apology. The customer didn't seem to care. "You all right?" Xander asked him. Marcus adjusted his headset. "Yeah. Just trying to keep up." "You're not behind. You're learning." Marcus gave a small nod and turned back to the window. Inside, Jonah was moving faster now. He kept an eye on the fryer timers while managing sides. His rhythm was tight drop, scoop, bag, repeat. No wasted motion. It wasn't perfect, but it was real progress. At 10:15, a man in a wrinkled jacket walked in and leaned on the counter. He didn't order. Just stared at the register. Zoe stepped forward. "Can I help you?" "Where's Clay?" the man asked. She froze for a half-second. "He doesn't work here anymore." The man scoffed. "He's my brother." "Said he got fired for no reason." Xander walked up beside her. "If you're here to order, we'll take care of you. If not, I'm going to ask you to leave." The man turned. "You the one who got him canned?" "I am. And I stand by it. He was here 10 years. You think you know better after 1 week? I know the people here deserve better than what he gave them." The man looked back at Zoe. "You soft kids wouldn't last a month in the kitchens we came up in." Zoe didn't respond. Xander stepped forward. "This isn't a debate. You need to leave." The man stared at him a beat too long, then turned and walked out without another word. Zoe let out a slow breath. "That happen often?" "No," Xander said. "And it won't happen again." She went back to the register without saying anything else. At 11, Renee arrived with a folder tucked under her arm. She waited for a lull in orders before pulling Xander into the office. "We finished the internal review," she said, handing him the folder. He flipped it open. Inside were summaries of complaints, clock and audits, and a final report of the labor violations confirmed during Clay's management. "We've issued formal apologies to every employee affected," Renee said. 3 of them accepted offers to return. 1 declined but appreciated the outreach. "And the rest? They're being compensated. Retroactive pay where applicable, plus a formal letter for their records." Xander closed the folder. "Anything else?" She hesitated. "There's one more. A report from a driver who made late-night deliveries. Says Clay used to lock the back door and make him wait 20 minutes, then claimed he was late and refused to sign receipt logs." Xander's brow furrowed. "We owe him?" "No. He just wanted someone to know." He set the folder down. "Tell him we heard him." Back on the floor, Miles was training a new prep assistant named Brianna. She was fast with the wrap station but struggled with the oven timers. He kept his voice low, correcting without snapping. "You pull it too early, it's under. Wait till the beep, not when you think it's done." She nodded quickly and tried again. The second time, it was right. Xander watched from the side. Later, he pulled Miles aside near dry storage. "She's got good hands," Xander said quietly. "She learns fast." "You ever think about training lead?" Miles blinked. "You serious? You've already been doing half the job." Miles looked away for a second, then back at him. "I've never managed anyone. You've managed to keep this place from falling apart. That's a start." Miles didn't respond right away. Then he said, "If I do it, I want to do it right. No shortcuts." "Good. Because I'm not giving any." At midnight, the rush finally thinned. Marcus clocked out, exhausted but grinning. Mariah left with her notes, giving Renee a quiet thumbs up on her way out. Brianna finished her final wrap batch and stepped out to wait for her ride. Zoe sat at the back table, pulling off her headset. Her hair was damp at the edges from the heat. "You ever sleep?" she asked Xander. He leaned against the wall. "Sometimes." She pulled her legs up onto the bench. "You think this place can really stay better? Or is this just the new honeymoon phase?" "It'll stay better," he said. "Because now it's personal." She looked skeptical. "People say that when they feel guilty. I'm not saying it because I feel guilty. I'm saying it because I owe you more than promises." She didn't challenge him again. Just nodded once and leaned back against the wall. By 2, the last car rolled through. Jonah started the closeout, checking everything twice before handing off to the morning checklist. Xander walked the floor one last time. No broken machines. No empty bins. No one hiding in the back. He paused at the register, where the headset was docked and the screen clean. The light above flickered once, then steadied. He exhaled. Then turned off the lobby light. They weren't fixed. But they weren't invisible anymore.